Friends, we often treat our brains as if they are static machines, hardwired and unchangeable, yet the reality is that your mind is more like a garden that requires daily tending, pruning, and nourishment to truly flourish. We stand at a unique crossroads in human history where we know more about the 3-pound universe between our ears than ever before, yet we live in a world designed to distract, deplete, and desynchronize that very organ. To boost your brain is not about a single heroic act or a sudden flash of genius. It is about the quiet, consistent, and relentless application of daily habits that compound over time. It begins the very moment your eyes open in the morning. Most of us reach for a smartphone, flooding our brains with cortisol and the demands of the external world before we have even reclaimed our own consciousness. But the first habit of a high-performing brain is the reclamation of the morning. This starts with hydration. Your brain is approximately 75% water, and after 8 hours of sleep, it is parched. Dehydration shrinks gray matter and makes every cognitive task feel like running through mud. By drinking 16 ounces of water before you touch caffeine or a screen, you are literally irrigating your intellect. You are giving your neurons the medium they need to fire efficiently. Following this, we must address the light. Our brains are governed by a circadian clock that dictates everything from our mood to our ability to solve complex equations. Stepping outside and getting natural sunlight into your eyes within the first 30 minutes of waking triggers a cascade of neurochemistry. It sets a timer for melatonin production later that night and releases a healthy dose of cortisol to alert the system. This is a physiological software update that tells your brain exactly where it is in time and space, reducing that pervasive brain fog that so many of us accept as a normal part of life. Once the brain is hydrated and synced, we must look at the habit of movement. We often think of exercise as something for the body, but it is, in many ways, more vital for the brain. When you move, your heart pumps oxygen-rich blood to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of your executive function. More importantly, physical activity stimulates the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as high-grade fertilizer for your brain cells. It encourages the growth of new neurons and strengthens the connections between existing ones, a process known as neuroplasticity. You don't need to run a marathon every morning, but a habit of vigorous movement, enough to get the breath moving and the blood flowing, tells your brain that it is time to be sharp, time to be alert, and time to grow. We must also talk about the fuel we provide this organ. The brain consumes about 20% of your daily caloric intake, despite being only 2% of your body weight. If you fuel it with processed sugars and inflammatory fats, you are essentially putting low-grade contaminated fuel into a Formula One engine. A daily habit of brain-boosting nutrition focuses on antioxidants and healthy fats. Incorporating blueberries, walnuts, avocados, and leafy greens isn't just a dietary choice, it is a cognitive strategy. These foods combat oxidative stress, which is the rusting of your brain cells over time. When you make it a habit to avoid the mid-morning sugar crash, you avoid the cognitive dip that leads to poor decision-making and irritability. You are maintaining a steady state of glucose that allows for prolonged periods of deep work. Deep work itself is a habit that must be cultivated. In an age of notifications, our attention spans have been fragmented into 1,000 pieces. The habit of monotasking is perhaps the most radical thing you can do for your brain today. We pride ourselves on multitasking, but the brain does not actually multitask. It context switches, and every switch comes with a cognitive cost. It leaves attention residue that prevents you from ever reaching a state of flow. By dedicating just 90 minutes of your morning to a single, difficult task without interruption, you are training your brain to focus. You are strengthening the neural pathways of concentration. This is like weightlifting for your attention span. Over weeks and months, this habit builds a mind that can penetrate complex problems while others are still skimming the surface. Finally, in this foundation of brain health, we must recognize the power of stillness. We often think that boosting means adding, but often, boosting the brain means subtracting the noise. A daily habit of meditation, or even 5 minutes of intentional deep breathing, shifts the brain from a sympathetic fight-or-flight mode into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. This isn't just about feeling calm, it's about biology. Chronic stress releases high levels of cortisol, which can actually shrink the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. By practicing stillness, you are physically protecting your brain from the erosive effects of modern stress. You're creating a mental buffer that allows you to respond to life rather than react to it. These morning rituals, hydration, light, movement, nutrition, focus, and stillness, form the bedrock upon which a powerful mind is built. They are the non-negotiables that ensure you are playing the game of life with a fully charged battery rather than a flickering candle. Building upon the physical foundation we've established, we must move into the realm of cognitive engagement and the deliberate stretching of our mental faculties. A brain that is pampered is a brain that atrophies. To truly boost your cognitive output, you must embrace the habit of intentional discomfort. This brings us to the second pillar of a high-performing mind, the habit of lifelong learning and intellectual novelty. Many of us fall into the trap of specialized routines where we do the same type of work, talk to the same people, and think the same thoughts every single day. While this efficiency is good for productivity, it is a slow poison for neuroplasticity. Your brain thrives on the new. It craves the challenge of a foreign language, the complexity of a new musical instrument, or the logical rigor of a subject you know nothing about. When you make it a daily habit to spend 30 minutes learning something that makes you feel like a beginner, you are forcing your brain to create new white matter pathways. You are essentially telling your biology that you are not done evolving. This beginner's mind prevents the cognitive rigidity that often comes with age. It keeps the mind flexible, adaptable, and resilient. You must view your brain not as a vessel to be filled, but as a fire to be fueled, and new information is the oxygen that keeps that fire burning bright. In tandem with learning, we must cultivate the habit of critical thinking and intellectual synthesis. In a world of echo chambers and algorithmic feeds, it is easy to let our brains go on autopilot, merely reacting to the information pushed in front of us. A brain-boosting habit is to actively seek out perspectives that contradict your own. This isn't just a social exercise. It is a neurological one. When you grapple with a complex counter-argument, your brain has to work harder to categorize, analyze, and respond. This process engages the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex, areas responsible for error detection and abstract reasoning. Instead of passive consumption, move toward active interrogation. When you read a book, don't just move your eyes across the page, argue with the author, take notes in the margins, and try to explain the concepts to someone else. This habit of teaching to learn is one of the most powerful ways to solidify memory and understanding. It transforms fleeting information into permanent knowledge by forcing the brain to reorganize the data into a coherent structure. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the profound impact of our social environments on our brain chemistry. We are fundamentally social creatures, and our brains are wired for connection. However, not all social interactions are created equal. There is a habit of social curation that is essential for mental vitality. Deep, meaningful conversations, those that involve vulnerability, complex ideas, and emotional resonance, release oxytocin and stimulate the social brain network. This is vastly different from the superficial doom scrolling or the brief transactional exchanges we have at the grocery store. Make it a daily habit to have at least one high-quality interaction. This could be a deep dive into a philosophical topic with a friend or a collaborative brainstorming session with a colleague. These interactions act as a cognitive stimulant, sharpening your verbal fluency and your ability to read emotional cues. Conversely, chronic loneliness or sustained negative social environments can be as damaging to the brain as physical trauma, leading to increased inflammation and cognitive decline. By habitually surrounding yourself with people who challenge your intellect and support your growth, you are creating a social greenhouse for your mind. Another critical but often overlooked habit is the practice of visualization and mental rehearsal. The brain is remarkable in that it often cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a real one. Top-tier athletes and musicians have used this for decades, but it is a tool available to everyone. By spending a few minutes each day visualizing your goals or rehearsing a difficult upcoming task in high-definition detail, you are pre-wiring your brain for success. You are strengthening the neural circuits that will be required to perform that task in reality. This habit reduces performance anxiety and increases cognitive ease when the moment of action finally arrives. It is a way of hacking your experience, allowing you to get the reps in mentally before you ever step onto the field. This isn't mystical thinking. It is the strategic use of the motor cortex and the visual processing centers to prime your nervous system for peak performance. We must also address the habit of digital hygiene as a means of protecting our cognitive resources. Our brains were not evolved to handle the constant high-speed barrage of blue light and dopamine-triggered notifications that characterize the modern day. Every time your phone pings and you look at it, you are paying a switching cost that depletes your finite store of mental energy. To boost your brain, you must establish strict boundaries with your technology. This might mean tech-free zones in your home or specific hours of the day where your devices are in another room. By giving your brain a break from the constant need to process microinformation, you allow the default mode network to kick in. This is the state the brain enters when it is daydreaming or at rest, and it is where our most creative insights are born. You cannot have a eureka moment if your brain is constantly busy processing emails. The habit of boredom, of sitting without a screen and letting your mind wander, is actually a high-level strategy for creative problem solving. It allows your subconscious to begin connecting disparate ideas that your conscious, distracted mind would never see. Finally, in this middle stretch of our journey, we must recognize the habit of gratitude as a cognitive enhancer. It sounds like soft science, but the neurological effects of gratitude are well documented. When you consciously look for things to be grateful for, you are training your reticular activating system, the brain's filter to look for the positive and the useful rather than the threatening and the negative. This shifts the brain's baseline from a state of hypervigilance to a state of possibility. It lowers the baseline of stress hormones and increases the production of dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters associated with well-being and motivation. A brain that feels safe and rewarded is a brain that can think clearly, creatively, and expansively. When you make it a habit to acknowledge your progress and the resources at your disposal, you provide your mind with the emotional stability it needs to take risks and tackle the hard challenges we discussed earlier. You are building a mental fortress that is not only smart, but also resilient and optimistic. As we move into the final pillar of our journey, we must recognize that a brain is only as powerful as its recovery. We live in a culture that treats sleep and rest as luxuries, or worse, as signs of weakness. But if you want to boost your brain, you must realize that sleep is not downtime. It is the most active period of maintenance your brain ever experiences. While you sleep, the glymphaticsystem, a sort of cellular waste management service, becomes 10 times more active. It literally flushes out the metabolic debris and toxic proteins such as beta amyloid that accumulate during your waking hours and are linked to cognitive decline. Without the habit of prioritized sleep, your brain is essentially a house where the trash is never taken out. Eventually, the clutter makes it impossible to function. To boost your mind, you must adopt the habit of the digital sunset. This means turning off the blue light of screens at least an hour before bed. Blue light suppresses melatonin, the hormone that signals to your brain that it is time to transition into the restorative phases of sleep. By replacing your phone with a physical book or a journal in the evening, you are allowing your nervous system to downshift from the high-frequency beta waves of the day into the soothing alpha and theta waves of the night. This leads us to the habit of brain dumping or evening journaling. Our brains are excellent at processing information, but terrible at storing lists of unfinished tasks. When you carry the open loops of your day into your bed, your brain stays in a state of low-level alertness, preventing you from reaching the deep, slow-wave sleep required for physical repair and the REM sleep required for emotional processing and memory consolidation. By spending 5 minutes every night writing down every worry, every task for tomorrow, and every lingering thought, you are offloading that data onto a physical medium. You are giving your brain permission to turn off. This simple habit can be the difference between waking up feeling groggy and waking up with a mind that is sharp, clear, and ready to conquer the world. It is an act of cognitive hygiene that ensures your mental workspace is clean and organized for the following morning. Furthermore, we must understand the habit of reflection as a tool for long-term wisdom. A brain that merely reacts to experiences without reflecting on them is like a traveler who sees the world but never looks at a map. Reflection is the process by which we turn raw experience into usable intelligence. Every evening, ask yourself, what did I learn today? Where did I succeed? And where did I fail to meet my own standards? This isn't about self-criticism, it's about pattern recognition. Your brain is a world-class pattern recognition machine, but it needs your conscious input to identify which patterns serve you and which do not. By making reflection a daily habit, you are consciously directing your neuroplasticity. You are telling your brain, this is the person I am becoming, and these are the connections I want to strengthen. This builds a sense of self-efficacy and agency, which are vital for mental health and cognitive resilience. We must also touch upon the long-term habit of novelty and environmental enrichment. To keep a brain young and boosted throughout a lifetime, you must never stop being a tourist in your own life. This means changing your physical environment. The habit of taking a different route to work, visiting new neighborhoods, or even rearranging your furniture forces your brain to create a new spatial map. It breaks the automaticity that leads to mental stagnation. When you are in a new environment, your brain is forced into a state of hyper-awareness, soaking up new sensory data and forming new associations. This environmental enrichment has been shown in studies to increase the density of synapses in the brain, providing a cognitive reserve that can protect against the effects of aging and disease. A boosted brain is one that is constantly being surprised by the world around it. As we conclude this exploration, let us look at the philosophy of the long game. Boosting your brain is not about a 30-day challenge or a temporary biohack. It is about a fundamental shift in how you view your relationship with yourself. Every habit we have discussed, from the morning sunlight to the evening reflection, is a brick in the fortress of your future self. We often underestimate what we can do in a day, but overestimate what we can do in a year. However, the reverse is true for the brain. The small, seemingly insignificant choices you make today, choosing water over soda, a book over a scroll, a walk over a sit compound over decades. You are building the brain you will have 10, 20, and 50 years from now. You are deciding today whether your future self will be characterized by clarity and wisdom or by confusion and fog. The most motivational truth I can give you is this. Your brain is designed to change. It is designed to adapt. No matter where you are starting from, no matter how tired or distracted you feel, you have the biological equipment to upgrade your experience of reality. You are the architect of your own neural architecture. You have the power to sharpen your focus, deepen your memory, and expand your creativity. But this power is only realized through the medium of habit. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you growing. It is the steady, rhythmic pulse of daily discipline that transforms a standard mind into an extraordinary one. So, I challenge you today to choose just one of these habits. Don't try to overhaul your entire life in 24 hours. Choose the morning sunlight, or the deep work block, or the evening journal. Master it. Feel the shift in your energy and your clarity. And one, add another. Treat your brain with the reverence it deserves. It is the lens through which you see the world, the engine of your ambitions, and the sanctuary of your soul. When you boost your brain, you aren't just improving your productivity, you are improving the very quality of your existence. You are opening up new dimensions of thought, feeling, and achievement. The journey to a better brain begins with the very next choice you make. Make it a choice that honors your potential. Make it a choice that fuels your fire. The world needs your sharpest, clearest, and most vibrant mind. It is time to go out there and build it, one habit at a time.